Quick question, does carrying a pocket constitution make you cool? If so, I was the coolest kid in high school, by a lot. Now, you're probably familiar with the First Amendment. It's free speech and all that, right? And the second, that's guns. But the 25th Amendment to the Constitution? Probably not so much, which makes sense. The 25th Amendment isn't usually one they teach you in your high school American government class. They didn't teach me in my high school American government class. And that's mostly because it's about something that almost never happens. What to do if a president dies or if he loses his ability to do the job. Suddenly, however, the 25th Amendment is hot. It's super hot. On 60 Minutes in mid-February, former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe said he took part in conversations with other Justice Department officials about what cabinet members could be recruited to vote to remove President Donald Trump from office.
Rod raised the issue and discussed it with me in the context of thinking about how many other cabinet officials might support such an effort.
See, there's one part of the 25th Amendment, it's Section 4 for you nerds out there, goes like this, and I quote, "Whenever the Vice President and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President," end quote. Whew. They weren't very brief. Basically, what they're saying is if the VP in the majority of a president's cabinet says he's lost it, they can remove that president from office. It's a drastic measure reserved for only the most drastic of circumstances, like if the president is totally off the rails, declaring a war on, say, mice, which would be a real stomp. We'd crush those mice. But the truth is that the main reason we even have the 25th Amendment isn't because of the off-the-rails scenario. It's because the Constitution, as originally written, was kind of sort of vague about the line of succession if the president bought the farm. Now, the goal of the 25th Amendment, which was introduced into Congress in 1965, coming several years after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, was to codify how a president or a vice president gets replaced. As in, if the president dies, the vice president takes over. Also, if the president resigns his office, the VP would become president, not the acting president. That was to keep the resigned president from rethinking things and trying to regain the top office. So after Kennedy was killed in 1963, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson became president. He then served for more than a year without any vice president. Fun vice president trivia. The vice presidency has been vacant 16 times before the 25th Amendment even existed. Huh? That was fun. Now, everyone thought the amendment was a good idea. It took only 18 months from the bill's introduction into Congress to it becoming an amendment to the Constitution. Now, yes, it's 18 months, but it's pretty amazing when you consider it had to be approved by 3/4 of the U.S. state legislatures, in addition to 2/3 of Congress. It's a lot of people to say yes. The 25th Amendment got some use following the resignation of Vice President Spiro Agnew amid scandal in 1973. Under the 25th, Richard Nixon was required to replace Agnew, rather than wait until the next election to pick a new second-in-command. Nixon picked Gerald Ford. Now, less than a year later, the 25th Amendment came a-calling for old Tricky Dick Nixon. He resigned before Congress could impeach him over Watergate. You remember that. Because of the 25th Amendment, Gerald Ford became president. Then, well, nothing. Between 1974 and the election of Donald Trump, the 25th Amendment, particularly the part about the cabinet removing a president from office, became mostly the stuff of fiction. And it was the stuff of lots of fiction. There's, of course, Air Force One, when President Harrison Ford is almost removed from office because he is on board a hijacked airplane. Now, the defense secretary goes all 25th Amendment and almost gets himself named president. But Vice President Glenn Close thwarts that plan. Also, on a related note.
Get off my plane.
Now, in the American version of House of Cards, which, sidebar, is really a bad show, the 25th Amendment is invoked not once, not twice, but 3 times. Again, stupid show, relying on terrible plot points. In the most recent season of Homeland, which is a better show, the president is removed from office by Vice President Beau Bridges, using the 25th Amendment because allegedly she is overly paranoid about attempts by the Russians to bring her presidency down, which is a little little on the nose, Homeland. Now, since Trump's victory and his decidedly unpredictable behavior in office, it has become a thing in liberal circles to call for the 25th Amendment to be invoked. Now, that chatter has gained steam of late, particularly after Donald Trump's rambling declaration of a national emergency on the southern border. Quote, "This Trump performance is why people talk about the 25th Amendment," read a piece in the Washington Post. Here's another one. Quote, "Trump's Rose Garden fiasco was a commercial for the 25th Amendment," blared an Esquire headline. I'll admit I would probably click on that. Now, even Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren is getting in on the act.
The 25th Amendment is there for a reason. And if officials believe it's time to invoke it, then that is their independent obligation as part of their faithful service to the Constitution. That's for them to decide.
Now, here's the thing. The Trump presidency is, yes, stranger than fiction in a whole lot of ways, but not in this way. Asked about the 25th Amendment, Vice President Mike Pence said this.
I never heard of it. I never heard of any discussion of the 25th Amendment, and frankly, I find any suggestion of it to be absurd.
So it's a no from Pence then. And without Pence, you got nothing, which means the 25th Amendment talk will continue to stay in the realm of fiction. And that is the point. We make New Point episodes twice a week. Check back every Tuesday and Thursday for the latest and greatest in political content.